Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from Earth 616 to the Mojoverse to the TVA in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm Travis.
Alliance Assemble,
Assemble.
volume 262. And as you see, David is not here. You would think, is he still in Mexico? Did he get stuck at the border? Did he just abandon the show? I have no idea, actually. No,
That
I do.
book.
I do know. I do know. This was last minute. This was definitely not planned. He is out and about of the country for another obligation that he did that was last minute. But we are gonna miss him this week. He is very tan.
Yes.
But thankfully, in a last minute pinch, our good man, Mr. Hines, from co-host of DC Alliance and the host of the Animation Nation, has stepped up to the plate. Travis, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris. Just some minor uh, world problems. Nothing talking a bit of Marvel. Can't get my mind off. So I was happy when David sent me a message and asked if I wanted to chat. Not bringing any big stuff, but it was pretty funny that after he asked me to drop the little teaser for Fantastic Four, I thought that was Kevin Feige helping out a little bit for a slow news week.
It is because I mean you've had a history on the show where you get called up to the bat and there's whole lot of nothing.
Yeah. Last time it was not. Last time it was a
That's it.
lot, but yeah.
You had Daredevil. You had
Yeah.
Daredevil,
Yeah.
and but no, we always appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate. I know David appreciates, but hopefully, I think David should be back next week at that point as we begin our march towards Ironheart and the Fantastic Four first steps. But yep, we had received word, and typically, as always, when tickets got released, we know we're going to get some new kind of trailer at that point. But we did get some interesting news items. Not a lot of, I wouldn't say one news item's disappointing but expected. Another one's like, oh, that was a thing, and kind of disappointing when you read about it. So it's a mix of stories this week, but some good stuff to chew on. But like you said, I'm in summer mode now. This is the start of my 4-day weeks. Busy because as soon as you close a year at a school, you have to start getting ready pretty much immediately for the next
For the
school
next
year.
one.
So yep, so hard at work, but it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of prep for a new school year. So, but yeah, it's rainy today. I don't like rain during the summer. It makes it
We
muggy.
we've had a whole week of really nice weather, 30 degrees. I can't do the conversion right now in my head. Because all week I've had Oliver as the daycare was
Mhm.
closed accidentally, like not planned.
Mm.
So I've had to take off like leave for 4 days, which was not great, but at least the weather was nice. That was the main thing.
Yep, Julio, you and I are both. We're not surprised, but we're gonna not be clickbaity about it because I do not like seeing some of the stories that are misinterpreting the stuff. I was the first person having to correct it a couple of times this week. So we here at Marvel Alliance, we're gonna get the news right. But I did. I have not opened it, but I did. My pre-order of my Nintendo Switch 2 came in. Still waiting for one other item. Still waiting for my Mario Kart. That should be coming in tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So
It's
I
a
haven't even
Christmas
opened it.
plan for me. That's a Christmas plan for me.
I'm very excited, and so hopefully the game comes when I got my day off tomorrow. So hopefully it comes with enough time that I can set it all up, get it all ready, and I can start playing
Is
it.
that the
So
only game that you got upon release? Is there any other? I
yeah,
didn't even ask. Is there any? I think I
um,
saw Phil playing a Zelda game. Is that a?
no, that's you everything. Most of the games still mostly work. I think about
Okay.
95% of the games still work at that point. You can either pay for upgrades or buy enhanced versions of it. But that's the only one I bought with it. I've got Donkey Kong on pre-order as well, but I've got a backlog of a lot.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I play my games as I go through them. I don't worry about a backlog because I always have something to play. You
Yeah.
know.
There's always something to go back
So
to.
I'm excited about it, but I'm excited to have a day off, and yeah, it's gonna be just relaxing. Need it.
Nice.
But all right, well, let us get.
Where's Brant coming in and saying MCU's dead? I'm just.
Yeah,
It's supposed to
exactly.
happen.
Yeah, I see Julio's chat. We'll definitely get to that point, Julio. Yeah, exactly. Let's school it with, yeah. He says I keep seeing YouTube thumbnails, Marvel Comic Con. They are in trouble, stuff like that. Yeah, again, clickbaity stuff. We don't do that here on Marvel Alliance. We can be cheeky about it, but we don't. All right. Well, we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network with 6 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers, our dollar tier is a tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon exclusive shows. Marvel Alliance has 2 shows in the backlog. We can watch this all day, the Infinity Saga MCU rewatch, and then the Tales from the House of X, where we watched our favorite movies from the Fox era of X-Men. And now, this summer, we can officially say the Baxter broadcasts have begun. Yes, the Baxter broadcast, the newest Patreon show, the Fantastic Four retro film reviews. David and I recorded the first episode looking at Roger Corman's unreleased classic cinematic masterpiece, the Fantastic Four from 1994 at that point. So, for patrons, that is going to release on Monday, June 16th. That is in the can. It is ready to go, or almost ready to go, but June 16th, that morning, you will be getting that episode, and that was a first watch for David. That is probably the second watch for me. But you can find it if you want to get ahead of it and watch it beforehand. It's on YouTube, and I highly, highly suggest you also watch the documentary Doomed after you watch it, because it's a very fascinating look at what exactly happened with that film. So, but next up for us, in July, we'll be watching the 2005 The Fantastic Four, followed by The Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Fantastic Four, a.k.a. Fantastic Four Stick, and from 2015. That will be a first watch for me. Y'all, I do this first watch. I've never also seen New Mutants because I have no I every time I think about it, it's like, you know what? I've got other things that I actually want to enjoy.
That's true. You may as well do it for the patrons if you're going to do it.
I do it for our patrons, which again, we always appreciate your all support patrons. You know, we do this, and then you at DC Alliance have got the DC films through the years. What is next up for you all?
We just posted The Losers a couple weeks ago. That was a fun episode, and we've already watched. We were going to get ready to record.
Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex is next for you all.
Woof. Woof. Little peek behind the curtain. The first 5 minutes is the best part of that film. So you'll get a very coming in hot performance of Travis for the patrons.
What I can tell you, if you want to get that taste out of your mouth, okay, read Jonah Hex by Jimmy Palmiotti. His entire run. New 52. There we go. Anyways, we had a little blip on.
I already put it on the list, Chris. Put it on the list.
Good. So, anyways, but so that'll be dropping June 16th for all the patrons. DC films. You just heard Jonah Hex is up next. We've got Joe's DC Dives, looking at all the animated classics in chronological order from the Disney archives. So make sure you check all those out with all the backlog. And if you're not a member of our Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/GUA network so you can get all that lovely content. And if you're not a member of our Patreon, we totally understand. But if you can take 30 to 90 seconds, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, we greatly appreciate that as well. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. Got a lot of epics coming in from Marvel, from Captain America, Carnage, Annihilation. And then we've got Spider-Man Brand New Day Omnibus Volume 2 for the first time ever in print, including the direct market where you can only get from places like Organic Price Books with the infamous Mary Jane cover that was so controversial. I actually still have that single issue. That was a variant cover.
For research purposes.
Obviously, because why not? Then you've got The Avengers by John Cinquoy Pell for the first time ever in print. That comes after the Busick and Perez run and comes right before the Brian Michael Bendis era. So a little gap filler for all of us, including Alpha Flight as well. So if you want to let them know, if you want perusing all that, use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order, or use the code MGUASIT for 5% off when you order 4 or more books together. And let them know you're a listener, and we want to thank them for being our official sponsor. All right. So, Fantastic Four, we knew tickets were going to go live this week, and typically when tickets go live, the studios will put out a teaser, maybe another full-length trailer, so typically, usually, at this point, we've done 2 trailers on Marvel Alliance. We typically don't usually break these things down. And with this one, there wasn't too much reveal, but there was a big revelation of something that we weren't sure. We knew Sue Storm was going to be pregnant, but this is our first time getting to understand that she is going to give birth in this film. So let us see exactly. Now, Travis, did you get your tickets yet?
No, I have not, because they're not on sale in my theater. But again, this is just one theater that has IMAX, so I'm not worried about getting it when they come out. It's never really a sellout for me in a day or two, so usually by the end of a week. So
good. All right. Well, we know you're going to be there at that point, day one.
Day
I've already
one.
got my
Day
tickets. Got my tickets for preview night, so the 24th. So I've got that for 7 o'clock Eastern Standard. So I'm very excited. So let us cue this up. We'll break this down. And, no sound at that point, but feel free to watch along with us. So we get the opening. Looks like Sue is looking over a crib, whether the crib's full or... I don't know if the crib may be full or not at that point. Reed's probably coming in the background. We see more images of Sue sitting with Ben. Now, we've said this before, even before trailers come out, that Sue Storm is looked at as the main character that the focus is. The focus will not be on Reed as the lead of the family. It will be Sue.
She's the Rock.
She is the Rock, and she is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four. Comic canon backs that up.
Yeah.
We had her and a good look at Ben, more look at Johnny. That it's about connecting to something bigger. Then we get another look at Silver Surfer. This is great. I'm sorry. Say what you want about anything with CG. They did a darn good job with the thing. Absolutely.
This looked fantastic, Chris. The water falling off him, and that's just next level CG. That's perfect.
More look at Sue using her powers. All right, so here we go. We got our confirmation. Franklin Richards is going to be in this movie.
Yes, and that would make sense with what some of the stuff I'm hearing as to why our villain's coming into play.
Mm-hmm. Now, in comics, we've talked about this a little bit in previous trailers when we knew that she was going to be pregnant in the movie, that Franklin Richards in comics, until recently, it was considered an Omega level mutant. He's reality altering powers. Now, post in the Krakoa era of X-Men, he has somehow lost his power set. But for most of his life, he has been a Omega level mutant.
That makes sense.
From everything and so this is more stuff that we've seen in previous trailers. This is directly pulled from the comics as the beginning of the arrival of Galactus and the Silver Surfer have come. Now, there are a lot of rumors, because again, during this time, also, in the comics, the Watcher comes in and bides them time to warn them of the coming of Galactus.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see the Watcher here.
Ooh,
but again, it would be pretty cool. No, I don't. I don't think.
Okay. No Jeremy Wright coming in.
I feel like that might happen in the big crossover. I could be wrong.
Okay. All right. We're going to do this as a family. That's right. This is going out to you, Brett. #family.
Sorry, anytime anyone says that, I'm just expecting Vin Diesel to pull off and open up the passenger side door.
So we see them in the hero shot with all the costumes at that point. The costume was great. I have no problem with these costumes.
10 out of 10. Perfect. Especially for the aesthetic you're going with the world.
Look at that. Look at that card. Look at the fantastic card getting ready to go full on power up. That was cool to see that in action. All right, I'm gonna pause right here as the thing, Ben Grimm thing, Mr. Fantastic, Johnny. They're in spacesuits. They've already gone through once where they have gotten their powers, so they're in the spacesuits again. In the back, Sue is with them, but Sue is not dressed in spacesuit. She is she's in a gray suit, and if you pull it up in a much more go full screen on it, the back of her what she's wearing says Future Foundation. So we've heard
Can
Future
I
Foundation
ask
was going to be
you one thing?
yes,
Is there a chance that that person in the middle isn't Sue
could
and
be.
that she's covered by Ben Grimm because he's pretty big, he's Shaq-like, so that like I could see her being in front and just covered by Ben Grimm too.
Could be, but my only strike against that is how Reed is putting his hand next, on
Yo,
her midsection.
lower back,
That's a
yeah,
very
very intimate, yeah.
intimate kind of feeling that usually, you know,
That's next level pickup, Chris.
yep.
That's what take away from that. Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm pretty confident it's Sue, but so she's not going wherever they're going. She's not going on this mission.
Mm-hmm.
So probably, possibly, maybe just after the birth of Franklin, you know.
That would make sense.
Yep. So looking at the building of the ship, today we are your defenders. The four of us will face this. We'll face the danger. More looks at that. We will protect you. And this is what's great about this trailer. Like, it's a lot of just like this is a family working
Yeah.
together,
The
joking
four of
around,
them.
being there.
Yeah.
This is
100%
what the
four.
Fantastic Four is about. So get your tickets now. And there's been a lot of speculation of the ship coming up onto what this is. You know,
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if this should just be a dying planet or like this could be even like the Silver Surfer backstory that you get.
or like you said, a dying planet that Galactus has already destroyed or mostly consumed. Another look at it. Oh, I wanted him to. Okay, I'm calling it right now. It didn't get said, but when Johnny goes like that, he's gonna say "flame on." But he says, "Is it clobber in time?" And he says, "Yup." So we didn't hear Ben say it, but he's gonna say it.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
gonna say the thing.
But there's so much resistance. That's the closest we got is Johnny saying, "Is it clobber in time?" He says, "Yeah." So
I think they're not gonna overkill it, so they're holding
yeah,
it for the film. That's all.
yeah. So Reed saying to Johnny, "I finally knocked it off the list. New spacesuits."
Yeah, yeah, this was kind of funny. He was like,
Yeah,
I take back everything I said.
yep. To you privately. So again, no notes right now. It met my expectations for this and what I expected for the trailer. Doesn't change, doesn't lower my hype, doesn't raise my hype anymore. They're hitting the buttons they need to hit. So what makes this makes this kind of big news for the Fantastic Four is, as I said, tickets went on sale. Well, according to Fandango, this came out today that the Fantastic Four First Steps had the biggest pre-sale kickoff of 2025, selling more tickets in the first 24 hours than any other movie released this year. That includes Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning and Lilo and Stitch. So this is further analysis. This is coming from Luis Fernando. If you don't follow him on Twitter, or any kind of the socials, he's kind of big into the box office scene, breaking down kind of a lot of behind the scenes stuff. He's not a scooper by any means, but he does some good analysis of kind of what's going on. It's not only on Fandango. He says, I can tell you from all the pre-sale kickoffs he's followed in the U.S. is one of the strongest for comic book movies are concerned. First 24 hours were 1.2 times ahead of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and just slightly under Thor Love and Thunders, which by itself could mean potential for an opening weekend flirting that with that Thor 4 had. Fantastic Four has the advantage its peak summer release slot would allow stronger walk-ups than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, for instance, which opened the summer. If word of mouth is strong. Obviously, always important to keep in mind that was just first day. Traditionally, fanboy is heavy. The pre-sales for MCU comic book movies have become more and more front-loaded as the years go by, and we are 50 days away from its release. Quite challenging big window to keep pre-sales momentum for now. So marketing team will need to keep the excitement up. But for all doom and gloom, post Cap 4 and Thunderbolts, a pre-sale kickoff this strong reflects the first trailer viewership has already shown the anticipation for this particular MCU film is real and incomparable to the two previous installments. So, however, this is going to be the big test that next week you guys are up for Superman. At that point, Superman sales go live next week. That has been confirmed. So maybe we'll be getting another trailer or anything like that. So we will see exactly. And you know, you and I are both seeing both of these movies. You know, we are not trying to pit anyone against each other, but I will not be surprised if Superman dethrones him in a week. And what I can't wait to see is all the people saying like, "Oh man, look at that, Superman's, you know, Fantastic Four." It's like that, like it again. It's as Louis said, it is the initial hype. You know,
100%, Chris. And again, this is a weird July where you have these three films. I just bought my ticket for Fantastic Four. They went up today here, so this the theater is three quarters full. Which again, that hasn't happened for the last, I want to say, half a dozen comic book films besides Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's good. Superman film tickets are not available yet. I think it's going to be weird. Obviously, the fanboys are going to go, like you and I are going to go watch all two, but then you have the people that they're trying to get just walking into the theater or walking by a theater. I don't know, like with Jurassic World 2, I'm not sure. It all depends. I think it depends a little bit on how that does as well, because again, these three films, one like you said, you could be. I wouldn't be surprised. Although Superman has 2 weeks to itself, essentially, like coming out, that I don't know if it can knock off Fantastic Four. That'll be a good test of the MCU brand, still,
I
to me.
I think Superman's going to own the 2 weeks, and then
Oh
Fantastic
yeah,
Four comes off, and Fantastic Four will own that. I feel very comfortable, and that's not saying that I think Fantastic Four is better. It's just the nature of the beast.
100%. And you got
I,
one
I
that's a built-in brand, one that's starting a brand.
but I do find it interesting, and I know Travis has brought it up a couple of times on Geekverse that the Superman hype is just not. I think there's excitement for it, but it's not like as he used the comparison of Batman.
Oh
Like
yeah,
the Batman hype is just it's something different about it. But I that this is going to be a movie that, as I've said before, and I've said it on the vodka stream as well. They need to give people a reason to have. You have to see this movie in theaters,
yeah.
and that's where word of mouth comes, and that's where love it or hate it. The Devil Fruit site comes into play as well. Cinema Score comes in as
Oh
well,
yeah.
but as we've seen, Superman is you can't compare Superman with Thunderbolts. Those are two
No.
entirely different things. But in a world where as Kevin Smith has said, it's in a world that needs a lot of hope and it needs something to push for at that point. When you have a movie like Fantastic Four, it's given a lot of good vibes at that point. Superman's also giving very good vibes. I thought that trailer that released gave it some interesting, and I said, okay, I see what we're doing here. I'm excited about it, but the idea that Fantastic Four, we the joke is the best Fantastic Four movie is The Incredibles.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
although 2005, I do think gets a lot of hate, but for the time, it was pretty,
mhm,
uh, like, pretty impressive. The
yeah.
first one, anyway.
So Julio says cinema score have to be an A. Um, I think his cinema score has to be. I think in some sort of A category would be very helpful. A minus. I could, again, I'm not going to bet on it yet because I can't bet on something that I'm just based on trailers. I'm not. I know you're not asking me that, but I can't even bet on that. I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't that. We'll just have to see exactly
There's
how it
also a
is.
lot less pressure, Chris, on this Fantastic Four film. Like, it's not building a universe. This is like movie or installment, like such and
Mhm.
such of the MCU. You have those Avenger films coming, which, like, every Avenger film has made $1 billion at least. So, like, you still
Yeah.
have that brand of it coming along. uh,
Mhm.
I think that the Superman film would get a little bit into DC here has far more writing on it. So if you're doing the marketing, I've seen more Fantastic Four than Superman so far. So
Yeah.
which one leaves before the other? I don't know why I can buy tickets for Fantastic Four before Superman. even though it's a couple weeks later. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But this is all about the MCU too. They have already built in marketing, built like stuff they've done this before. It's not their first
Yeah.
rodeo. DC Studios is just starting out, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. And
Yep.
I'm with a Fifth of Jack Gaming. That's exactly how I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, Fifth Jack says, I think I will see Superman in theaters, maybe FF, and won't be seeing Jurassic Park in theaters. I just feel like there's a lot riding. Oh, there's totally a lot riding on Superman. You know, Jurassic Park. I've said this before, also on the vodka stream, where I just feel at this point where we keep on rehashing the same thing, and I felt this for a while with Jurassic Park. I just don't see too much outside of it's great to look at. The dinosaurs are impressive. The cinematics are impressive. I just don't get a lot from the story, and this is not a movie that I feel like I have to see in theaters necessarily, and I'll be okay with it, and I'll see it when it gets on streaming. But I hear enough from people in the sense of with Superman too that they know it's going to come on HBO.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So it may be a while, but sometimes, again, we've said it before, you have to give people the reason for it at that point. Jim Scroggs in chat. Hey, Jim. I feel like Superman has the most to lose, and I hate saying it since it's a brand new universe. No, you're right. I think we've said it before. There's a lot more writing on it, but I think in comparison to Marvel has a lot riding on this, but not as much as what's going on with DC. At least, as Julia says, at least Jurassic Park has a budget of 180 million. Yeah, well,
Disney owns Marvel. Like what? Like Disney's stock price is like 10 times what the owners of DC Films is. So that like the money, there's nowhere near the same money. They need to make like, and again, hope this might change with the performances from Captain America and Thunderbolts, and who knows what we get from Fantastic Four net, because maybe the days of billion-dollar films are like very rare instead, and you might have to change things where the budgets might have to come down a little bit to coincide with what you're getting at the box office.
Yeah, and we saw with Thunderbolts is going to be the second lowest take home at that point. However, very critically acclaimed. But also that gets to the point of like, what is the movie focused on? Who is it focused on? The brand recognition is just not there. Even with the gimmick that they tried at that point, didn't work. It didn't work as well as they thought it was going to work at that point. But in any case,
I can't explain in a world like I've really enjoyed Thunderbolts. I can't explain in a world where Suicide Squad theatrical cut made $750 million and Thunderbolts there's no comparison in the quality of the film, and I'm just shocked at times of like how far back the box office has come with these comic book films.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
A different time, but again, we'll be there looking at it at this point. I'm excited for the films at that point, and I'm not, like I said, my opinion on Jurassic Park is not saying it's a bad franchise or anything like that. They have the track record to do well, but it's just, hey, it's not my tempo anymore. It hasn't been my tempo for a while.
Mine since the first one. And again, I hope that all three of these films have successful opening weekends and as much time as they have to make as much money.
Exactly. Julio saying Disney hates losing money despite making money from the parks. Yep. Well, there we are. No company. That's a company's job to make money and for the stockholders and shareholders. So, but anyways, before we move on, any last minute thoughts on the trailer or the huge ticket sales?
I'm just excited for Fantastic Four, Chris. It's been way too long with the whole kerfuffle of fan force stick. It's just let's get here. Come on.
Yep. All right, so we're going to take our first ad break for the evening before we get into the other news items. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. They can be a bit loud, so give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, so let us move on to what came out at the end of last week that, as I saw the clickbaity headlines and the misinterpretation of what happened, I said, we are going to correct this and say it right. Everyone, let's understand. The news came out from the Hollywood Reporter's Heat Vision email last Friday that Marvel Studios is not going to have a Hall H presentation at San Diego Comic-Con. Let me repeat that. They are not having a Hall H presentation. They are not skipping San Diego Comic-Con. All right, there's a difference. We have known when Marvel Studios has not been at San Diego Comic-Con. There is some precedent for that. They are just not having a Hall H presentation. So, breaking this down from the Hollywood Reporter's Hate Vision email, Fantastic Four opens on the Friday of San Diego Comic Con, and this year Marvel will not have a Hall H panel. It's happened before. So, with Avengers Doomsday pushing out to December 2026, Marvel has another SDCC before the film's theatrical release. The cast of Avengers Doomsday is currently in production, and it didn't feel like the timing was right for a Hall H panel. At least that was the thinking inside the company. Marvel will still have a major presence at San Diego Comic Con with numerous panels about comics, games, and more. Probably animation, maybe Disney Plus, who knows? But they're going to still be there. They're going to have presentations. Sources tell Heat Vision that it will be a massive footprint in San Diego Comic Con's convention with a fully redesigned and immersive booth with the lens of the release of the Fantastic Four. And there could be some surprises in store as well. It's not that the first time Marvel skipped Hall H due to timing. Marvel operates on the go big or go home ethos, which, someone can say good or bad about that. 2011, the company was focused on shooting the Avengers. In 2015, it didn't have footage to share. And in 2018, it had several films wrapping production, but nothing new to announce. Those were different from the times Marvel missed due to the pandemic and due to the Hollywood strikes. Last year's Marvel Hall H was one for the ages, with Deadpool and Wolverine screening featuring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman to start the convention, and it had the theatrical reveal of Robert Downey as Doctor Doom near the end. Marvel is still showing up at fan conventions, and at the time of publication, they were there with Fantastic Four and CCXP in Mexico. So, Marvel will have a big presence at San Diego Comic-Con. They're going to be there. There's going to be panels. But again, I understand why. I'm not surprised, as Julio opened the show saying, in the chat saying like it was not surprising because again, yes, this is one where one of my predictions for the year where they're going to announce a new part of the slate and not necessarily slate, a new movie and a new Disney Plus show. That's fine. If you don't have anything to show, you don't need to make a big deal out of it. And from also the pushing of it, it doesn't so. What could they put together? Yeah, they say, oh, look what the Batman did back in COVID when they put that together. It's just like, let's just let them cook and just let them take the time they need. We thought about maybe they could put out the next group of casting. They could still do that and not have to be at a Hall H panel to do that. But again, do it right. We've said it before. Take your time.
If they did the casting, just did a casting announcement, people would lose their mind complaining if they didn't announce any of this stuff.
Wait, fans complaining?
Again, you know how you have those presentations like you had last year with Robert Downey Jr. when you don't go and present when you have nothing or barely anything. Like, again, it's not a big deal. You know what's happening. They announced it last year here. Also, just be happy that they're going and doing these announcements like they did last year here when they have their own conventions. They literally have their own D23 thing. That just be shot. It's happy that the stockholders and all that are not saying like show all this during this event, not during this other event. So again, I think it's much to do about nothing, Chris. Obviously, just give people ammunition to do that whole cycle of the MCU's dead, the MCU's in trouble. Blah, 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 blah. It's just so stupid.
Yes.
So stupid.
The MCU's dead when they're having a full, huge, major footprint at San Diego Comic-Con. I think that the interesting message that was as a reverse of this, like, oh, it's now DC's time to shine and things like that. It's like, well, not saying that James Gunn has not known to change his mind and said like that, but he was pretty clear saying SDC focus for DC Studios is their major focus is Peacemaker.
Yeah, and
doesn't mean they can't change, but time's ticking.
Also, I don't want to see stuff announced and then in 2 years find out none of these projects are coming ahead, because I've lived that life too. It's not a fun fan life to live. Like you said, they're not going to be there. Tell me that you don't respect comics, gaming, animation if you're saying they're not going to be there at all. They don't have to have a Hall H presentation. They could have some stuff. Marvel animation was fantastic the last 2 years. You could get an update about X-97. You could get an update about Spider-Man, like the new Spider-Man animated series that we got. Like there could be so many other things. So again, just enjoy what's going to be there. And the best thing that you could get was a Fantastic Four panel. So
Yeah.
like and a showing.
And they could pull like they did with Deadpool and Wolverine. They could do a surprise showing at that point. There's precedent for that. So Julio says this ain't no Bob Chapek strategy anymore. Quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Let them take their time. Samir in the chat, summer of Superman marketing kicking into high gear. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the thing that's surprising, probably to both of us being fans of it, is like I really hope in the sense that it does well, but they may just be nervous in the sense of saying we're gonna have a huge Superman presence there. Maybe they're just holding it close to the vest, and it's a risk that they have to do, but they also don't want egg on their face. I can also respect that, but it is rather interesting that there's nothing right now that they put out that anything about celebration of Superman. Just saying.
They're not going. I'm going to just tackle this from
Yeah,
what I do
Yeah,
for a
go for it.
living in
Yeah.
the job side. They're not going to do that because they don't have the money. They don't have the money to do that. Marvel's not going because they don't have the content right now. DC's not going to do nothing for Superman that'll already be out for a week and a half. No, yeah, 2 weeks at that point. Superman would already be out for 2 weeks when SDCC starts. It gives no benefit for WB for the lack of money that they have to do anything after that with Fantastic Four coming in. Maybe in a couple weeks after that, you do an extra marketing kick, but they don't have the money. That's just the nature of the beast here. So again, it's just sometimes people just want to complain. I'm excited to hear stuff from Marvel about comics, gaming, and animation, and I can't believe we're going to talk about this next story.
Yep.
Frustrates the ever loving everything out of me.
Yep. So let us head into hate to end the show. Well, the show's not over, but the news segment on something disappointing. But digging into this was a very big kind of expose coming from Bloomberg about why electronic artist EA canceled a new Black Panther video game. So this week, EA canceled a video game based on the Marvel superhero Black Panther and closed the developer behind it, Cliffhanger Studios. It was the latest move in an ongoing reorganization of the game publisher, which has also gutted BioWare, canceled projects at Respawn, and laid off hundreds of employees this year. In an email to seen by Bloomberg News, president of EA and Technology Laura Mile wrote that these decisions were made to sharpen our focus and put our energy behind the most significant growth. Looking ahead over the next couple of years, we are staying focused on what we believe is the biggest impact: Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex Legends, and continued to invest in blockbuster storytelling. Our mobile business also remains meaningful and part of our future. In recent months, Chief Executive Officer Andrew Wilson said that EA plans to divest from licensed games in favor of its own properties. But this week, a representative for the company told IGN that EA will continue to make 3 more Marvel games, including Iron Man, in the years to come. This Iron Man game has been talked about for a while now, with not too much seen from it. So what happened with Black Panther? So the news comes as a shock to many in the Cliffhanger employees. According to people familiar with this week's events, they actively were hiring staff, and Black Panther had recently passed what EA calls a gate, a development milestone where the executives review the game's progress and decide whether to continue production. The team had momentum, and the project was coalescing, according to the people who were known to have worked on the project. But they asked not to be identified right now. Others familiar with the project told me that the EA executives were frustrated that the game had not yet left the pre-production phase after nearly 4 years of development. Games take a time. As EA assessed the portfolio earlier this year, it eliminated some of the projects that had been in development for a long time and made the least amount of progress. And this included the Black Panther game. One reason the game slowed progress to Black Panther was that the studio had only just begun scaling up. Many of the workers laid off this week were hired less than a year ago, including some who just joined in the last few weeks and months. So before we get into what this game was going to have, this has been an ongoing issue in the video game industry. Now, I somehow missed the thing that I somehow either missed that there was a Black Panther game in development.
Really?
Yeah, I
I thing was announced like maybe a few years ago at like a Comic-Con, I feel like maybe.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I had forgotten about it. That's
That could
how,
be true too with 4 years, yeah.
yeah, you know, lots happened in 4 years.
Well, we had that Wolverine leak like 2 years ago, so you know, well, it wasn't just
I'm
Wolverine,
getting
but
a little worried that that game also because of that leak ain't happening.
yeah, it's tough. It's the industry as a whole has changed. Like you used to get when we back in, I don't want to say like back in our day, like we're super old or anything, but there was different developers that you wouldn't always get your standard games from the company that owned the console. So like there's far less of those companies out there. So you're getting far less and less gems, which is very frustrating because the cost of putting out a game and everything behind it, you need so much in sales now just to justify even the Spider-Man games. You're like, are we going to get another one? Are we even sure? Like, we hope so, but
Yeah.
it's like,
And this is the big thing when you got companies that are owning lots of different sub kind of developers at that point. This is this is the industry right now, and the worry is also with the threat of AI. Like, what are they putting out there to do in other ways? But it's unfortunate. A lot of them found out basically the last minute and shuttled off, and the game being canceled, never seen the light of day. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any leaks of what was. But this is what Bloomberg has found out about what this game was going to have. The company was founded in 2021, and they are behind the breakout hit Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor and its sequel, which I played both of them. Great games, outstanding games, lots of fun. The highlight of Shadow of Mordor was the Nemesis system, which allowed certain orcs to develop traits and personalities. For Black Panther, they were building a new system that would expand on the Nemesis system. The plan, according to the people familiar with the game's development, was to feature various players playing as heroes from the comic book universe, such as T'Challa, Killmonger, and Shuri, all competing for the mantle of Black Panther, which would grant superhuman strength. The player would take control of one of these heroes, and that's saying a lot for saying Killmonger being a hero, while others become rivals with the player that they could cultivate relationships. The heroes would be aligned against an opposing force, the Skrulls, shapeshifters from Marvel Comics that were attempting to invade the African nation of Wakanda. Some Skrulls could have been imposters posing as allies. Others remembered the player's behavior and acted accordingly, much like Shadow of Mordor. It was a very ambitious system, and the early prototypes of the games built were designed to demonstrate the developers and EA executives that how it might function. It was going to be a big milestone for it, but procedural narrative experiments were hard to showcase to the executives. The team had been moving slowly due to the elongated ideation period and also the struggles of simultaneously building a game and a studio, said people familiar with this situation. It didn't help that people said that Cliffhanger was based in Kirkland, Washington, an expensive city that would need to pay top salaries, especially now that EA has put an end to remote hiring. So the closure marks the end for the big budget games using the Nemesis system or the narrative experiments like it. Just 3 months ago, Warner Brothers shut down Monolith, which was working on a Wonder Woman game that also had experimented with their own version of the Nemesis system. So, sounded cool.
yeah,
Sounded interesting. You
I feel
know,
like I had
maybe
this
they were going to
discussion
give us some a good version of the Scrolls. You know.
I feel like I had this discussion 3 months ago on DC Alliance talking about the Wonder Woman situation because, like they said, they're very comparable. It's just sad. It's sad that there was a time where the thing for developers was you had a cap. You could only put out 5 games for this system, and that was like you can't even get one anymore at times, and that ruins the whole gaming company. And sometimes they're even toast after situations like this. So it's rough, Chris. It's just
Yeah.
that would have been a cool game. We don't have the selection is not nearly what it once was
Yeah,
for
and
quality.
you know, right? You mentioned the Wolverine game. There's been leaks of that had come out with what is going to be this PlayStation State of Play happened yesterday. You know, at the time of recording, no mention of that game
Nope.
whatsoever. So, and that's been kind of put out there. So I'm a little worried. I know Wolverine is obviously a big time character. You know, you literally can print money if you do it right with that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing for that. No update, anything like that. So I'm leaning on saying, is that game going to be happening? That would be more disappointing. And then you've got the Blade game that I've joked around and I'm still serious about. You're going to see the Blade video game before you see Blade ever in the Marvel universe officially back outside of Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a rough time for game. We in DC side, we even haven't had a Superman game since I can't even remember now. So it's forever.
DC side of video games that have been successful outside of Arkham have been Injustice.
Yeah, and the second one was kind of the exact same as the first one. So the first one was the one that was like, wow, this is a crazy
Yeah.
game compared to what you saw. And then yeah, no,
Yep.
not much in the gaming world these days.
Yep. So unfortunate news. I hope the people, the employees from Cliffhanger, like I said, they were abruptly told to attend a meeting. Then 30 minutes later, they were told that Black Panther was canceled, the studio shutting down, and go home.
I
You're
hope they
fired.
land on their feet.
Yep. Hopefully, get picked up somewhere. Unfortunate news. Hate having to deal with it, but yeah. So unfortunately, that's how we're gonna end the news week at this point. Maybe some uplifting stuff next week, but again, it's news, and we want to discuss it at that point, especially as it relates to Marvel. So, all right, we're gonna take our last ad break for the evening before we get into uh, listener feedback and fact or fiction. So, as you know, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. It could be a bit loud, so give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right. So, let me pull up the questions for this week. So we had put out the call. And so we've got 2 questions this week. So first one coming from Anthony Dorsey. Once Phase 7 starts to focus more on the mutants, obviously they're not going to just completely discard the Avengers and related characters. What Multiverse Saga characters do you think will continue on to play large roles in the next saga? I will let you take that one first.
I'm gonna say Captain America, the new and improved version, would be
Mm-hmm.
my first selection. Depending on the deal, Spider Man, of course, he's had interactions with X-Men before.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those will be my first two that I would think of
Yeah.
coming right after that.
Yep. I will agree with those. I think Shuri, some version of the Black Panther, will continue to exist. Um, I think Yelena, will continue to be kicking around in there. Um, Daredevil going to continue to exist. Loki, Loki's going to be interesting because I think that's a 50-50 shot whether he makes it through. You know, in the
I think
sense of, except
he's going to be a
I think
victim of the.
Tom Hiddleston continuing on with the character. I think he continue on. Let me take that back. I think Loki can continue, but I don't know how much longer Tom Hiddleston wants to continue playing the character. Gets pricey after a while.
Yeah, that's true. And again, this he might want to move on to other things.
Mm-hmm. Because without a Thor, you gotta have a Loki. So Thor, again, they're gonna recast
Maybe
eventually.
Captain Marvel too.
Yeah. So not everyone is long for the world, but I think they'll have some sort of amalgamation of the team. Who I don't think is going to do. I think Red Guardians, no. U.S. Agent, discount Captain America.
Basically, everybody from Thunderbolts outside of Yelena.
Ghost is, what about Taskmaster? She's coming back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So Braden asked, "Do you think Doctor Doom is going to be in the post-credit scene, or do you think he has a larger role in the movie?" Here's a hot take. I could see Marvel Studios not doing anything with Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four. No post credits, no nothing, and just really send the fans for a loop. I could easily see them doing that. Do I think that? I don't know.
What's the next film after Fantastic Four?
Technically, Doomsday.
Okay, yeah, no, we're gonna
No,
get.
no, 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 not anymore. Not anymore. It's Spider-Man. Spider-Man's next. Now.
Then Chris could be right because I don't know if they're going to do the things like I think gone are the days of like you seeing something in post credit scenes 7 movies earlier that like starts up another movie. Like I think that maybe at the end of Spider Man you'll see that that might have a bit more impact with Tony Stark being his mentor. Maybe a post credit scene with him there might make a little bit more sense. But I could see it now that they switched the movies. But before, if it was leading into Avengers Doomsday, I would have thought we would get something post credit wise.
And here's the thing: I could already hear people saying, "But how are they going to build up Doom? They haven't built up. We have never seen Doom in this stuff." You're not wrong, but it's just there has not been a buildup of this character, and that's just the problem of it. So it's I could see them doing it, but I'd be like, man, so the first time we're gonna see Doctor Doom is gonna be Doomsday. That's where I'm saying like I could I see them do it? Would it be a kind of a rolling of the dice move? Yeah, it could be, but to your point, knowing now that Spider-Man Brand New Day is the next movie coming out, could you possibly see the introduction there in the sense of who he is looking like? Yeah, sure.
Again, this is getting trapped in the shared cinematic universe of it all. Because how many movies have we seen before? 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, 3 hours long that were able to have a villain tell
Including Superman's now in that league too.
yeah, like again, you can tell a story, have a villain there, and that villain be compelling for the entire film, and not have to have him show up three, four, seven other times prior to like reinforce him or build him up. Like, I'm assuming they're going to be able to do a good job of telling Doctor Doom, Tony, like Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. I do believe they do a good job, and I don't think that showing him like his origins and stuff in a post credit scene for another film like does a lot for Doomsday, to be honest with you, Chris. I feel like that kind of stuff should be left in the film. So I don't know, maybe just seeing Doom at the end of the Spider-Man post-credit scene, but you can keep him completely out of this Fantastic Four film. Make it about the four of them and Galactus.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where they we can go back and forth on this one. I think, if I were to be a betting man, I would say that, yeah, Doctor Doom is going to show up at some point. I would think it'd be very big risk to have him show up, not until Doomsday, but could happen. It could easily happen.
Yeah.
So, but all right, thank you all for those questions this week. So now we head into fact or fiction. So last week, these were the fact or fictions from David. So an original Avenger will die in the first 15 minutes of Avengers Doomsday. 64% said fact, 36% said fiction. What say you, Travis?
That's a pretty, if rolling the dice would say fact on that one.
Okay. We will get a character appearance from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before the end of Avengers Secret Wars. 57% said fact, 43% said fiction. Man, and I'll stick by it. It's like, we've been beating this drum for a long time and nothing happening. So I think I said fiction on this one just because even though Heart wants it, I've said I'm kind of moving on. What about you?
In the words of Vince McMahon, no chance. That's what you got for that.
Yeah.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's not happening now, especially with all the other potential cameos that you can bring in from the past history of Marvel. Yeah, sorry.
Well, speaking of cameos, we will get a David Hasselhoff cameo at playing his Nick Fury role in either Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars.
Come on, dude. Fiction.
25% said fact, 75% said fiction. Hey, that's why we have fun sometimes with this. So, all right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Roll the dice.
All right. Travis, as always, the guest. You take over fact or fiction this week. What you got?
Fantastic Four will be the highest grossing comic book film of 2025.
Ooh. Highest grossing film of 2025 for comic book movies. Man, so what we have left right now is Superman, Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else coming out that of significant that we
don't
consider?
think so.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I said, I don't think there is, but I know there's definitely not from DC.
No, there's nothing here.
Yeah, okay. That would be a coup in the sense of we're not saying it's $1 billion movie, but could it basically in the end push over Superman at that point? And does that mean Superman's a failure? No, that doesn't mean Superman's a failure.
No.
I'm gonna say ooh, that's tough, man. Um, Man, that's a Sophie's choice there at that point. I mean, that's not. It's just because I look at the history of the character. I'm gonna say fiction, but it's not a strong fiction. It's like a 51%, just because I'm gonna rest on the laurels of like the representative of Superman being. If you have to put it Superman against like Fantastic Four in the sense of brand recognition, Superman wins. It's not even close. So
I'm going with Fantastic Four. I'm going with fact in this one because I do think that the runway that Fantastic Four has
yeah,
is what I do think is going to give them, especially if you get a good first opening weekend and positive word of mouth. I do think as long as it's positive word of mouth and it's a good film, I do think it will continue on and make the most out of all the films
yeah.
just because that's the best runway. There's nothing else in August, really.
And as I said, like it's like a 50.5, 51% at that point. So it's just it's tough right now. I definitely think it's going to be, the
Close.
this movie I could see at the very least doing over 400 million at the very least at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point. So it'll definitely it should be able to beat both Captain America and Thunderbolts in box office. But yeah, that's a good one. So what you got next?
Eddie Brock will appear in the next Spider Man film. Again, we've had in a couple of before we got Miles's Uncle Aaron, and he didn't do anything or mattered anything, but he did show up for a little appearance.
No, no.
So
In order to say, you have to say Eddie Brock,
not
Eddie
that
Brock,
not that Eddie.
Eddie Brock, Eddie.
Sony's gonna be
Well,
like, build us another Venom, please.
well, Eddie, come back. I say there's more of a chance for Miles to show up than Eddie Brock right now. I think
Okay.
I think we're cooling it on Eddie Brock for a little bit. So,
There will be an animated film.
what about
and
you?
that-
Do you
oh,
think?
I think fact.
Okay.
And then there will be an animated film, and then it's based on a Marvel DC comic crossover in the next 5 years.
You think they're gonna take this from the comics to animation? It's a whole lot more of lawyers and exchanging hands on that one. I don't see it right now.
Yeah,
I think
I wanted to go longer and put 10 years, but I just I didn't want to make it a ridiculous factor fiction to be like so far ahead. So yeah, I went with
anything can
5 years.
happen.
Give us not such a runway to be like, yeah, we'll check back on that factor fiction in another 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. Like I said, I know I do know what's coming next for the next crossover. With that's coming next year. It's gonna be fun. But I think right now it's gonna stay with the comics because that's what they can more work around and that's where they've got their agreements. And I'm with a lot of people in the sense of like let's make this as something that we don't always expect and not like beat it to the ground and make it too gimmicky. We never know we're gonna get these, and so let's welcome it. Let's show them with our dollar signs that put out a good story, put out good art. We can do this.
Well, that's also why I said based on one of the previous works, because again, I don't want new stuff all the time either. I'm pretty much the same with the take as long as possible in between projects to like make it a bit more unique and special.
Yep.
But yeah, I do think that there could be something with the animation between the two of them.
It could be. I just think
Live action will be way more messy. That's why I said animation.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's definitely a non-zero chance.
Let me pick the GIF. So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's always a chance. There's no. I'm a teacher and student of history. There are very few absolutes in life.
It's true.
Yeah. Absolutely. If people say that's absolutely never going to happen, that's why we be careful. We choose our words wisely. So, anyway, so I will post those on Sunday afternoon. So let your voices be heard with that. So as you know, with David not being here, we were going to start Comic Book Club this week, but we are not. So next week, when David returns, we will start our Comic Book Club with Fantastic Four. Life story. I have done my homework. I'm going to probably have to redo my homework for reading it next week, but I'm excited to do it. I read the first issue, so I'm looking forward to discussing it with David for our comic book club. So delay on that, but as we come to end Marvel Alliance, again, want to thank you, Travis, for coming on board and stepping into the co-host seat as always.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I always enjoy coming here and talking Marvel with you or David.
Absolutely. So tell people how they can follow you and plug your shows.
You can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about DC, Marvel, pretty much anything, animation. I host 2 shows on the GWA Podcast Network, DC Alliance and the Animation Nation. Right now with Animation Nation, we're doing Rick and Morty. We paused from doing Justice League Unlimited as we're in the 2nd season of that.
Okay. Yep, and you can follow me on all the socials at Chris Balgi. You can follow David at The Phantom. You can always catch me every Saturday on the Brave and the Boys channel on Saturday afternoons, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Organic Price Books Weekly Buyer's Guide. And you can follow this podcast on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. And as always, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order, or MGUA sit for get 5% off. Purchase 4 or more books. And you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. And we want to thank you all for joining us live in the chat, listening on your wherever you're listening to it. And thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, post-credits discussion. I put it to you. You had a very simple answer at that point. You wanted to talk about Rick and Morty.
Yeah, because I'm disgusted with it, and I've only talked about it with me into the void. On the podcast.
In our group chat.
Yeah, a little bit. I've been a little busy, and I just basically talked about it on the podcast. Is essentially it. And I'm very disappointed because they pivoted, Chris. First 5 seasons was just mindless, episodes, not really any 2 or 3 parters or anything like that. Really, season finales a couple times, but nothing, no main through storyline through the first episode to the last episode. They switched that up with the 6th or 7th season, and they didn't go back to it in the last little bit. And I'm like, I thought that was a permanent switch, and now it's not. And I haven't been enjoying just the one-off episodes since they switched that.
Yeah, as I told you, the season opener was very paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Did not really move the needle for me. It didn't kind of establish anything at that point. Second episode was better. I like a good Beth. Beth being the assassin at that point. I did appreciate your theories on thinking that she is the real Beth while the other one is the clone. Those are definitely some good ideas. But with everything, yeah, if every episode is just a bottle episode, yeah, that's one thing. But I think what the show, like you said, what the show has done the last few seasons, that there's been some overarching thing that they've looked into and gone through. And we don't know what that is right now. And it's okay because, typically with Rick and Morty, you're going to have a few episodes that are dealing with the arc. And then you're going to have these bottle episodes to kind of break it up a little bit. But, right now it's not bringing anything new to the table. Do I chuckle? Do I get a few laughs here and there in the episode? Yeah, I do. But, right now, meh.
It's like they mixed it up a little bit, because I agree with the whole, the first few episodes could have landed in the middle of the season and hit a little different if the first few episodes that we watched previously were really good and set up a big storyline for the season. But that's not how they're doing things anymore. So yeah, like you, I do laugh at some of the random jokes and some of the one-offs and some of the stuff Rick does. But again, it just feels like it's just play the greatest hits over and over again.
Yep. So, but we'll have to see. 2 episodes in, we get a new episode as always for the next couple of weeks. So we'll check that out. But yes, tune into the Animation Nation for the full breakdowns of it. And we will catch you all next week for the newest episode of Marvel Alliance. We'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.